In March 1954, Bumpy Johnson received a 15-year sentence to Alcatraz, the most dangerous prison in America. But this wasn't just another prison transfer. Multiple crime families had been waiting for this moment, and men on the inside were already plotting his execution before he could even set foot in the cafeteria. This is the untold story of how Harlem's most powerful gangster survived what should have been his final days. From the moment he arrived on the Rock, Bumpy faced threats from inmates connected to the Italian mob families he'd crossed, rival gangs seeking revenge, and corrupt guards willing to look the other way. What happened during those months on Alcatraz reveals the intelligence, street smarts, and sheer survival instincts that made Bumpy Johnson a legend. This wasn't about being the toughest man in the yard. It was about reading people, forming unexpected alliances, and staying 3 steps ahead of everyone who wanted him gone. Bumpy knew something was wrong the second he stepped off the boat. The guards at Alcatraz processed him differently from other inmates. They took longer. They watched him closely. One guard even smirked when another mentioned which cell block Bumpy was assigned to. That smirk told Bumpy everything he needed to know. Someone had paid these guards money to make sure he ended up in the worst possible spot. Cell Block D was where they put the most violent inmates. Men who had nothing to lose. Men are doing life sentences with no hope of parole. And several of these men had direct connections to the Genovese crime family back in New York. Bumpy had crossed Vito Genovese years earlier over territory disputes in Harlem. Genovese never forgot. He never forgave. And now Bumpy was trapped on an island with men who owed Genovese favors. The first threat came on day 3. An inmate named Tony Scalisi approached Bumpy in the recreation yard. Scalisi was serving life for 3 murders in New Jersey. He was connected to the Genovese family through his uncle. Scalisi didn't waste time with small talk. He walked right up to Bumpy and said the price on his head was $10,000. Anyone who took Bumpy out would have that money sent to their family on the outside. $10,000 in 1954 was serious money. It was enough to set up a wife and kids for years. Bumpy didn't flinch. He looked Scalisi in the eyes and asked him a simple question. "Why are you telling me this instead of just doing it?" Scalisi paused. He wasn't expecting that response. Bumpy pressed further. "You could have stuck me in the shower this morning. You could have waited until I was alone in the library. But instead, you walked up to me in broad daylight and told me someone wants me gone. That tells me you're not the one who's going to try." Scalisi said nothing. He just walked away. But Bumpy understood what had happened. Scalisi was testing him. The mob wanted to see how Bumpy would react under pressure. Would he panic? Would he try to get protective custody? Would he start making desperate moves? Bumpy did none of those things. He went back to his cell that night and started planning. The problem was simple. Bumpy couldn't fight everyone. Even if he was the toughest man on Alcatraz, too many inmates wanted that $10,000. He needed allies. But who could he trust in a prison full of criminals who would sell out their own mothers for cigarettes? Bumpy started studying the prison dynamics. He watched who sat with whom in the cafeteria. He noticed which guards were lazy and which ones followed every rule. He paid attention to which inmates had real power and which ones just pretended. After 2 weeks, he identified the most important person on his cell block. His name was Robert Stroud. But everyone called him the Birdman of Alcatraz. Stroud was a loner. He'd been in prison since 1909 for stabbing a man. He spent most of his time reading and writing. The guards left him alone because he never caused problems. Other inmates respected him because he'd survived longer than almost anyone. Stroud wasn't connected to any mob families. He didn't owe anyone favors. And most importantly, he couldn't be bought. Bumpy approached Stroud in the library one afternoon. He didn't ask for protection. He didn't try to make friends. He simply started a conversation about a book Stroud was reading. The book was about military strategy in ancient Rome. Bumpy had read the same book years earlier. They talked for 20 minutes about tactics and deception. Stroud was surprised. Most inmates in Alcatraz could barely read. Here was Bumpy Johnson discussing Roman military history like a scholar. That conversation changed everything. Stroud started sitting near Bumpy in the cafeteria. He didn't sit at the same table. He just sat close enough that everyone noticed. In prison, proximity means something. It means association. It means you have someone's attention. The other inmates saw this. They started wondering if Stroud was protecting Bumpy. Nobody wanted to test that theory. But the real threat wasn't from inmates. It was from the guards. 3 guards on the night shift were taking money from the Genovese family. Their job was simple. Look the other way when something happens to Bumpy. Don't ask questions. Don't investigate. Just let nature take its course. These guards worked in rotation. Every third night, all 3 of them would be on duty at the same time. Bumpy figured this out by tracking their schedules. He noticed patterns. On certain nights, the cell block was quieter. Guards took longer to respond to problems. Doors that should have been locked were left slightly open. These weren't accidents. These were opportunities being created. Bumpy calculated that the attempt on his life would happen during one of these nights. He just didn't know which one. 2 months into his sentence, Bumpy noticed something strange. An inmate named Mickey Cohen had arrived at Alcatraz. Cohen was a Los Angeles mobster with connections to the Jewish mob. He was loud, aggressive, and paranoid. Most inmates avoided him. But Cohen had a reputation. He survived multiple assassination attempts on the outside. He understood how prison politics worked. And most importantly, he hated the Italian mob families. Bumpy made his move. He traded his dessert rations to Cohen for 2 weeks straight. He didn't ask for anything in return. He just gave Cohen extra food. Finally, Cohen asked why. Bumpy told him the truth. He explained the $10,000 bounty. He explained the corrupt guards. He explained that the Genovese family was coordinating everything from New York. Cohen listened carefully. Then he laughed. Cohen said he'd been waiting for the Italian families to make a move inside Alcatraz. He knew they had guards on payroll. He knew they were planning something big. Cohen made Bumpy an offer. If Bumpy helped him identify which guards were corrupt, Cohen would make sure word got back to his associates in Los Angeles. Those associates would then put pressure on the Genovese family from the outside. It was a mutual protection arrangement. Bumpy agreed. Over the next 3 weeks, he and Cohen gathered information. They noticed which guards talked to certain inmates. They tracked who was getting special privileges. They documented everything. Cohen had a lawyer who visited him twice a month. During one of those visits, Cohen passed all the information through coded messages. His lawyer took that information to the right people in Los Angeles. 3 weeks later, everything changed. One of the corrupt guards was suddenly transferred to a different prison. Another guard stopped showing up for work entirely. The third guard started acting nervously. He avoided eye contact with inmates. He stopped taking bribes. Something had happened on the outside. The Genovese family had been pressured to back off. Not completely, but enough to make the guards think twice about helping with any plots. The bounty on Bumpy's head didn't disappear. But the coordination fell apart. Without corrupt guards providing opportunities, the inmates who wanted that money had to act on their own. And acting alone in Alcatraz was risky. Too many witnesses, too many ways to get caught. The smart criminals knew better than to try. Bumpy still faced danger every day. But he'd changed the game. He'd turned a coordinated assassination plot into random acts of desperation. And desperate men make mistakes. One inmate tried to attack Bumpy in the shower, but Bumpy saw him coming and defended himself. The inmate ended up in the hospital. Another inmate tried to poison Bumpy's food, but Bumpy always traded his meal tray with random inmates. The poison ended up making someone else sick instead. By month 6, the word on Alcatraz was clear. Bumpy Johnson was too smart to eliminate. He had too many angles covered. He had unlikely allies watching his back, and he stayed calm under pressure. The $10,000 bounty became a joke among inmates. They called it the impossible job. Nobody wanted to try anymore. Bumpy didn't just survive Alcatraz. He earned respect. Inmates who initially wanted him gone started asking him for advice. Guards who tried to set him up started treating him fairly. Even the warden noticed something different about Bumpy. He wasn't like other gangsters. He didn't cause problems. He followed the rules. He read books. He stayed out of fights unless someone came at him first. The real genius of what Bumpy did was simple. He turned his enemy's plan against them. The mob wanted to isolate him. He built alliances instead. They wanted him to panic. He stayed patient. They wanted him vulnerable. He made himself unpredictable. Every move Bumpy made was calculated. Nothing was random. Nothing was emotional. Everything served a purpose. When Bumpy Johnson finally left Alcatraz, he walked off that island the same way he walked on. Head up, eyes forward, no fear. The plot to end his life had failed. Not because he was the toughest man in the prison, but because he was the smartest. And in a place like Alcatraz, intelligence was worth more than any weapon.